welcome to Campus Conversations. My name is Tim Taylor, and I'm hosting today a very special friend and guest, Dr. Lynne Chambers. Miss Chambers, say hi to the audience.
Hello, everyone, and what an honor to be here, Dr. Taylor. Thank you.
Lynne is one of the first people I met when I became president here at the college, and she was on my community advisory committee to get started, and so her and I got to be close from pretty much day one, and so here we are almost 6 years later, and I've got you on finally as a guest, and I've been waiting for this day. And I just want to say, if anybody has any questions for Lynne or ourselves, you can certainly email them in, and we will get back to them as soon as we can. Does that sound good?
Absolutely.
All right, so you got any questions before we get started?
Well, I would actually just like to make a statement. Congratulations. Since you've been here, there have been some amazing opportunities. You just won the Aspen Award. I was so proud and excited about that. Very prestigious, very competitive. And it's something to be very proud of, so congrats.
Well, we haven't won it yet, but we have made the top 200. We actually interviewed last Friday for the top 25.
Well, see, I'm speaking it into existence.
Yeah.
Well, just to make the finalists is really
yes, it
prestigious.
Really is. We are very proud, especially in the short amount of time that we've been working on those things. It's been very, very, very overwhelmingly positive, I think.
Amen.
So thank you.
You're welcome.
So you and I have always been talking. I mean, for years we've talked about equity and how to create equity within the community. What first sparked your passion about equity and social justice?
You know, I don't know if there was one defining moment. I remember very early as a kid being the one, like if other kids got in trouble, going to the teacher and saying, you know, it didn't quite happen that way. Let me explain. I don't know.
You're one of them.
I'm one of them.
Peacemakers.
Yeah, and I don't know if you remember a commercial that was on several years ago where these two little girls bring home this one-eyed chihuahua that it was for Clorox.
Oh, really?
And they had him in the tub, and they're like, Mommy, could you keep him? So the Clorox puppy. I've always just looked for the Clorox puppy, whether it was an issue, whether it was a community, because those are the ones that I felt connected to.
So at some point in your life, that passion for equity turned to advocacy. Do you have one defining event that kind of moved you into that advocate role?
Well, it's ironic. You know, I had a midlife crisis and changed careers and went to law school. And I had so many people ask, did you go to help your son, you know? Mm-hmm. And I was like, no, I've always wanted to help people. And law is social work on steroids. It gets you into doors and rooms that the social work degree wasn't getting me in. Mm. And that was very intriguing. I was very interested in policy work and making sure that the policies that we had were equitable. And we talked about the distinction between equity and equality. Mm-hmm. That, of course, you know, all things being equal in a wonderful world, right? But equity is more, there are barriers to get to your goals, whether it's having great health, whether it's having a great education, whether it's just having a home. What do we do to remove those barriers through policy, through advocacy, through action to get people where they need to be or should be or want to be?
So no real defining moment, it's just you decide one day you're going to be a lawyer, huh?
Well, it was a little bit more of a process. But I became interested in the law when I was young. I met attorneys from Land of Lincoln. Mm-hmm. Phil Milks. You had asked me about mentors, but Phil Milks and Sheila Simon back then. And it was so funny. I was so young and not exposed to an attorney. I'm like, they look good, they smell good, and they help people. What do y'all do? And that was my first introduction into really having an understanding, especially what public interest law was about.
Yeah, I'll say, in my job, I've joked recently a lot that I probably do need a law degree. I mean, because I'm always having to balance student college needs with the law. And the law, honestly, it changes quite frequently, and it's not usually written very well, and it's sometimes fairly ambiguous. And so trying to interpret those rules, basically, and how we need to act within the college's framework to meet those rules, yet still meet college and student need, has become more of an art form. But you can't have that. You can't be that artful without understanding at least what the baseline law says. And so, more and more every day, I'm spending more time reading legal journals, reading briefs, case law that defines what of course, the laws mean more so. So I can see why people would want to go back to, especially if you're really interested in what I would call equity, equity reform. I can see where you would need to start with, what's the law say? Of course, then there's advocacy on the other side of it, trying to shape the law in a more equitable way, but also just interpreting what it says and trying to make it more meaningful for students in the college. So
it sounds like you've done the first year of law school. You might as well go on up to Simmons and get signed up.
I'm telling you, the college's legal expenses have gone up considerably over the last 4 or 5 years, just because of the nature of the way the business has evolved.
Right.
So we've used the word equity, and we've kind of interspersed a little bit of equality, and we'll get to that question a little bit more detailed later. But what does equity mean to you? Just, I think I know, but the audience doesn't know. Tell them what you think it means.
So I think that the light bulb came on for me years ago. I saw this video called The Race. Have you ever seen it?
No.
It basically had black students and white students and students with special abilities and just a variety of folks at this line, right? And the facilitator read certain statements, and if you could engage with that statement, you were allowed to move up towards the finish line. And it really helped me understand. I think I alluded to that equity is difficult if there's barriers. So one of the prompts in that exercise was, how many of you had books in your home? How many of you went to private school? How many of you never had to worry about hunger? And you saw the folks moving up. You can't. It's hard for you or any human being to focus on those higher aspirations if we're on lights, gas, and water, as I always say. So that's why I'm so interested in helping people recognize that poverty just isn't about money. It's about all kinds of things.
It's about resources generally. I mean, it's not just money, but you're right, it is resources. And I would try to sum up equity personally as different people need different support in order to be successful.
Exactly.
But we want everybody to reach that same level of success. It's just some folks.
And those are my barriers that I keep talking about.
Those folks that are resource poor, they just need more support to get to that standard, versus those that are a little more resource. What's the word I'm looking? That have the resources. They can usually reach that standard a lot quicker. So, and it doesn't. You're right. It's more than just money. Although money does kind of solve some of these things, but it's housing, it's food, it's basic access to people who can help you learn and teach. When your family is first generation poor, and they've been first generation poor, multi-generation poor, they don't have those abilities to kind of help you learn and see beyond usually just a small frame. So I agree with that.
And that's why it's good that we have programs like Student Support Services and Upward Bound and TRIO and a lot of those programs, and the data has shown that they really do help.
So, how's your understanding of equity evolved or shaped by your own personal experiences?
Wow, I was teasing you earlier. You're making me think with these questions. Again, I have a deep sense of social justice and social responsibility. And I'm really not sure how it happened. It just evolved. It just evolved over time. I looked at the things and the people that I gravitated toward, that I felt most connected with. And those were people that shared my values and shared a humanistic standpoint that all of us, and they were all in it together. You know, done a lot of work with community building, and it wasn't by design. Now, at this point in my life, it's intentional and deliberate, as my pastor would say, but it was just who I evolved into being.
So tell me about Equal Justice Initiative and how it's shaped your life, and what have been the underlying patterns that helped you get to that point?
So I think, to go back to a defining moment, I read a book called Just Mercy. And it's written by a gentleman named Bryan Stevenson. And Bryan Stevenson's work was devoted to righting wrongs in the criminal justice system. He worked in Alabama, fresh out of law school, with individuals that were on death row and with juveniles. And then subsequently, he argued in front of the Supreme Court and changed the sentencing structure. Those cases changed the sentencing structure for juveniles in this country. And I was just like rock star after that. Fast forward, we engaged, when I say we, Legacy Training, engaged with the Healing Illinois Initiative. And our first project had been to take groups of people to the Legacy sites in Montgomery, Alabama, which is Bryan Stevenson's brainchild creation. A set of a museum and a memorial to people that were lynched, and an amazing sculpture garden that just opened up. And that really changed my life as well. The history, the understanding everybody's role in America and where we've been and where we are today. I think that also increased my passion for social justice.
So you mentioned 3 organizations: Healing Illinois,
Yes.
Equal Justice Initiative, and I'm having a brain moment.
Legacy Training.
Legacy Training.
Okay.
Talk about each of those organizations and how they are different, but also how they intersect.
So our work at Legacy Training, our vision is to alleviate poverty of the mind, the body, and the spirit. And we do that through health promotion and the arts and humanities. So it's kind of unusual. We're not per se a social service organization, but we deal with issues that impact our communities. That being said, the Healing Illinois Initiative, and also with the Grand Victoria Foundation, works with grassroots organizations to talk about how do we heal, how do we build bridges of trust in communities. And Healing Illinois was funded after the George Floyd incident. The Equal Justice Institute talks again about history in America, especially as it relates to Americans of African descent, domestic terrorism known as lynching, and then the relationship between mass incarceration.
So how does equity inform each of those initiatives for you?
Well, I think that Healing Illinois informs the fact that if there are systems and policies, or just, on a more basic level, neighbor to neighbor, people to people, that's how we really heal. One of my favorite quotes, and I think it's from Michelle Obama, is it's hard to hate up close. And it's really a very simple concept. I think if we spent more time talking to each other and engaging with each other, we'd find out that we have so much more in common than that we don't. Now, our projects, in fact, you were involved with one of the first ones. We were funded during COVID. And of course, how do you do events? And we were trying to like sort it out. But we wound up doing our programming virtually. I invited thought leaders and influencers, such as yourself, to engage in a conversation with, in your case, it was visual artists. And we did our program around Juneteenth. You wrote a really cool essay that I still use and have published in some of our things. Senator Fowler was involved. He did healing in hip hop. We had a group called the Best of Both Worlds. It was interesting. John Windings played with Doreen Ketchens, who was like one of the greatest jazz artists. So we brought together and did these virtual programs, and they were just so amazing. You know, people still talk to me about them. And so many things evolved from that. So, yeah.
So that was the Artist Collective
That,
group?
yes, and it's still going.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's still going. When's the next one?
We are scheduled for September the 26th in Anna. So the show will be up the month of September, and the Artist Talk is September the 26th. And it's been really, really interesting, Dr. Taylor, because as you know, Anna is a sundown town. Or maybe you didn't know.
It definitely used to be. I don't know if
it
still
used to
is.
be. You're right. It used to be. It used to be. Because I applaud and I celebrate that this is the only local gallery that has invited us, and this is our second time going back. And it's also been the best attended of all of our shows. So we recently showed at a conference called One State, which the Illinois Arts Council and Illinois Humanities came together to bring us all together for one major conference. The criteria to be a member of the Artist Collective, very simple. Go to Montgomery and create a work of art based upon the response of what you learn.
So again, this is going to still be visual arts. It's not going to get into the performing arts.
It's a multimedia show.
So it is. Okay.
Yeah. So we have, depending on how you would want to do it, but a young man named Callan Nanny wrote a song called Legacy, a hip hop song. It's a magnificent piece. Shot it in Cairo. If you would want him to perform that live, he'd love to do that. But if he's not with us live, then there's a video.
So you're going to adopt that for your legacy training? Kind of the theme something?
You should check it out, and it's very powerful. It's very powerful. But again, it was his response, and he's a white hip hop artist. So it's just amazing. He grew up in Graves County, Kentucky.
So what do you think people often misunderstand about equity?
That it is about equality, about everything being equal, and it's not about it's not about just looking at individuals, that it's looking at systems and policies and so many things other than just that.
Do you think people think equity and equality are the same? Is that what you're saying?
I do.
I agree. I think they misunderstand what that means. Why that distinction matters, I think, for children in families, maybe in communities.
Well, ideally, we talk a lot about kids and families. And one of the things that I kind of wanted to share with you that I just came across is a concept called the weathering theory. And this is saying that chronic exposure to stress, especially racism and economic disadvantage, causes accelerated health deterioration in Black Americans, particularly Black women. This will be our 16th year. We have produced Legacy, I'm speaking of now, has produced a conference called the Our Lives, Our Stories, African American Women's Health Conference. And several years ago, we had a young woman named Chastity Mays come and speak. Chastity is a doula, which is
What's that? Yeah, I don't know what that means.
It's a healthcare professional that's highly trained to support a woman in the last trimester of her pregnancy and the first 12 weeks of her child's life.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, I've loved doulas forever. I've wanted this program and blah, blah, blah. Fast forward, and I think I'm jumping to the question where you asked me how advocacy can make a difference and how engaging with people can make a difference. So I introduced her to a colleague of mine in Southeast Missouri, and now there's a whole doula program there. Fast forward, I referred a young woman to her that had had 2 prior cesarean sections. Now, Black women are much more at risk, and it doesn't matter about socioeconomic level, but Black women are much more at risk of dying during childbirth than any other woman in America. So you compound that with the risk of a cesarean, you're going into it a very dangerous situation. So I introduced her to Chastity, and Chastity advocated for her because her doctor wanted to do a cesarean. There's this thing about if you've had one, you've got to always have them. Vaginal birth isn't possible. But anyway, Chastity was there. She advocated for this young mother who was just demanding the opportunity to have a natural childbirth. And she did, and mom and baby are doing wonderfully.
Oh, it sounds awesome.
Yeah. Need a doula program with your nurses here. It's really one of the things, again, the data shows has helped with maternal morbidity. And that's why those stories are so important, Dr. Taylor, to be told. And I've called a lot of heat about this conference. You're discriminating against folks. And it's not that at all. It's not that at all. It is the fact that the majority culture doesn't have to think about things like that as much, right?
I'm glad you added as much.
Yeah.
I can almost get on board with that.
Oh, almost. But now you've heard that story, right?
Right.
Now if it wasn't, and I know you know we all, but if someone is not telling your story, then who's going to do it, right? Anyway, long story short, please know anyone can come to the conference. Men can come. Now, men, we ask for a $10 donation. But it's
that feels
open.
Like a bias there. Gender bias.
It is. I'm very sexist when it comes to labor because we'll also ask you to help with the trash at the end of the day. But on a serious note, the importance of a culturally specific, gender specific story where people came to a safe space to learn, to engage, had not happened prior to us doing that. And every year I'm exhausted. I say I'm gonna quit. And here we are at 16.
Well, I mean, we've sponsored at the college here for years, that conference. And you know, I've had conversations about that before. So it's not a surprise to you that I advocate that it's not just Black women, it's poor women in general. Now that may manifest itself more so in the African American community, but there may be other communities that would argue it's still meaningful to them as well. So I mean, that's why we're different. That's why I say I'm almost there. But
yeah.
So this isn't news to you.
No,
we got a new audience here.
That's why we're here.
We got a new audience here.
We model civility. We model the fact that we don't have to disagree on everything
Or agree.
Right. That's what keeps it interesting.
Exactly.
That's why I come have lunch with you. If I talk to think about it. If you spend all your time talking to people that thought exactly like you are, no change comes.
Well, I mean, people grow when you actually consider others' opinions and try to reconcile those against their own, in my opinion. So, I mean, that's just a way to grow. It's a way to create, in my mind, lasting relationships, because you try to appreciate what others are looking at through their own lens instead of your own. So that's why I like to have these conversations with you.
Exactly.
So let me ask this. Let's kind of take it out of kind of, you've talked about application through legacy and the Justice Initiative and so forth. But I'd like to take that up to a kind of a leadership role. Why is the idea of equity so important for leaders? Their understanding of equity and that difference between equity and equality. Why is that so important for leaders in our community?
I'm going to start with my philosophy on leadership. I wrote down, now this is Lynne, what I think are the primary character traits of leaders.
Okay.
And then I'll get to your answer.
So leaders according to Lynne.
Yeah, leader. And actually a training that I was in, I have to give credit to the magnificent Gloria Cotton as a part of a training program. Shout out to the Illinois Women in Leadership Training Academy, of which I'm a graduate. And she taught us about leadership from the perspective, I had another period of craziness that ran for public office.
That is crazy.
Yeah, but it was a wonderful opportunity. I learned so much. Anyway, so characteristics of leadership: organizer, trainer, visionary, communicator, and storyteller.
So
those were the ones that I picked for myself.
Okay.
So that understanding about equity is key to all of those roles, right? If you don't understand systems and equity and policy, it's very difficult to organize a community and really help them understand those pieces, right? The storytelling, I'm telling that story about how someone right in our community benefited from a doula, right? Because she came, spoke at the conference, she's in Carbondale, if not through that engagement. So the storytelling is important. So I could go on, but it relates to those roles that leaders have. It's important. It's like 101 of the knowledge base you have to be effective.
Do any of those have strength over the others in your mind?
Oh, God. I guess if I had to rank them, I would say visionary. What you do at Convocation, you're obviously those comments that you made were intentional to inspire and to motivate your staff, the faculty, to bring their A game every day and serve your students, right? That takes the vision. You craft a vision as a leader. You say, we are going to be the best community college. We're going to win that Aspen Prize. So it starts with that vision, and then you work to motivate your team and lead your team. But they have to capture the vision too. They have to see it too.
I think I would add, I would agree with all those characteristics, honestly. I just look at them a little bit in that there has to be a way to reach that vision. You have to be able to think about the community and the students in the college, at least, in what does equity look like, and how, and what are the gaps within equity, so that you can elevate those voices so that others can consider those challenges as we move forward. Because I'm not going to solve these issues on my own. I mean, my team is going to have to work to solve those issues. And
you're talking to someone who did not leave. For whatever reason, I did not leave. And when our best and brightest leave, it's not going to get any better. So I'm a big advocate for, let's make this better. Southern Illinois is a really wonderful place to live. And you can make a very good living here. You just got to do the work. And, whether it's going to college, whatever your dream is, we need people in the trades. We've had that conversation too. Since this is Black History Month, Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois had that great debate, right? You remember the debate about is the plight of the Black community going to be solved through intellectualism and education, or is it going to be solved through good old economics, the trades, Booker T. Washington, And I think it's both.
I was just curious to say it's both.
It's both, right?
Yeah.
But it's important to recognize that I'm always going to advocate for here. I'm always going to advocate for home. And I get up every day feeling like we can make it better.
Good. That's a good outlook. So you talked about women's health.
Yes.
So how do you balance being a community advocate with your own health?
It goes back to being deliberate and intentional.
Mhm.
You know, some days I do pretty good. I walked today, I had a salad and I drank some water to make up for tomorrow when that cheeseburger's going to call me and I'm in the car and I don't have time, or I can't find healthy food because they don't have although it's getting better. You can actually find healthier food options more now than we used to, at least as you move, again, farther north. But it's important to just recognize that you have to think about it. You have to think about the decisions that you make and recognize, especially this season in life, that the chassis needs a little bit more work to maintain it. And I think that's what, you see that thing about if I could write a letter to my 16-year-old self, if I could tell a young woman or man or whatever, your health is your most precious commodity. You are nothing without good health, right? And it needs to be treasured and protected early.
So I know I'm jumping all over the place, but what would you tell young people who have an interest, or even parents, how to become advocates for equity and justice?
I would say that even though you and I have titles that say we're leaders, but I challenge everybody that you're a leader. You have a voice. It's important for you to be involved, to be informed, to figure out the difference between facts and feelings, and to recognize that this is an old expression. You're either going to be at the table, under it, or on it. And I'd rather be at it. One of the Healing Illinois projects that we have going, I wanted to talk to you about, is bringing people together through music. And we've had this conversation as well because you told me about black heavy metal.
I did.
Oh my God.
I gave you tons of bands that you didn't even hear of, right?
And that I'd never heard of.
And I gave you the YouTube links so you could watch.
And it was fun. It was fun. So with that being said, back to Healing Illinois, we talked all about Montgomery and how important that trip is. We decided that the arts and humanities are part of our focus early in Legacy. Actually, those were the years where arts had been cut from the schools. So we kind of got together to start forming the gap to bring art back to schools, specifically the schools that you just referenced. Fast forward, we produce a concert every year at the Marion Civic and Cultural Center, which is a state-of-the-art venue. So this is our third one. June is Black Music Month. And so we celebrate that and we recognize that. And this year, it's a celebration of jazz, which jazz is a uniquely American art form. Y'all like jazz? You like jazz?
It's all right.
Okay, it's all right. I'll send you some links.
It's not like I haven't listened to it my entire life.
But you haven't listened to Lynne's
Lynn's
playlist.
Okay.
Yes.
You just send me a Spotify playlist. I'll listen, I promise.
And it's good. I'm really excited. This year, we always believe in supporting and featuring local artists. So Mel Goot is going to be playing for a couple of very talented young women, Amiel Russell and maybe Zayana Malia. Both of them are Shawnee College graduates, by the way. And following that, we have Dr. John Cooper, who is a jazz scholar coming down from Western Illinois University. He's going to perform and do a lecture about Louis Armstrong and his contribution to jazz. And then the final artist is Daryl Davis, who played with Jerry Lee Lewis and Elvis. But also his claim to fame is he engaged with members of the KKK, Ku Klux Klan. And through those conversations and through those relationships, they disengaged with the Klan and gave him their robe. So yeah,
that is a nice story right there. Jazz has many flavors, really. Do you have a favorite flavor of jazz?
I really like Ella Fitzgerald, I think, was my favorite jazz vocalist. But I love New Orleans jazz. Doreen Ketchens, who I mentioned. The Louis Armstrong jazz, the roots of jazz.
So kind of like the Dixieland stuff?
Well,
or whatever it's called.
You've been to New Orleans, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all love to go to New Orleans, and they talk about the roux, where they throw all this good stuff in, and etouffee, and they're just a master of all of these different flavors coming together to make something magnificent. Well, that's what jazz is. It's heavy on improvisation. It brought together all the cultures that were there in New Orleans, French and indigenous people and African, and just the melting pot of New Orleans. That's how jazz flowed up. And then a lot of that started from the songs in the field, right? So
yeah, the blues.
The blues. And it evolved. And
because when I get to New Orleans, that's what I listen to is the blues.
Yeah.
Pieces of it.
Yeah. So there's all kinds of flavors. And then there's contemporary jazz.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a jazz aficionado by any stretch of the imagination.
I'm going to work on you just a little bit. I mean, you didn't convert me to heavy metal, but I listened with an open mind and ear.
Well, I've listened to it many times, and there are some good. Erykah Badu, is that her name?
She's neo-soul, but yeah.
But she's got some
jazzy flavor. Yeah, yeah,
So,
she does.
what does an equitable community look like to you?
Where
In practical terms.
In practical terms, just, it's about access. Again, if a kid in Cairo has the same education, exposure to curriculum, and experienced, knowledgeable, dedicated teachers as that kid in Lake County, that's educational equity. If I can go to a local clinic and get the same care as I could in a major city without having to go to Vanderbilt or the dream Mayo Clinic, right? If it was all everywhere, regardless of us being in rural America, because it's really, we agree about poverty, it's not always about race, it's about class, it's about resources, it's about so many other things, because ruralism is real too. Mm-hmm. In fact, I think I've experienced ruralism more than racism. Sometimes I just don't know which one shows up in the room with me first. So if I had to rank them, it would be ruralism, sexism, and then racism.
I see. So eliminating all of those is what an equitable community looks like? Is that what you're saying?
On a practical level, I don't know if you're ever going to eliminate it. It's bigger than the three of us in this room. But what you can do is you make small differences where you can, when you can.
Sure. And
you have the courage.
So if you could, our viewers, listeners, if you could give one call to action to them, what would it be?
Get involved in your local community, but don't get involved to complain or to point out all the problems. Get involved to be part of the solution.
Which starts with understanding the problem to begin with, correct?
Exactly.
From multiple lenses.
Yeah. And find good mentors. Find people that have your values, share your passion. Develop those relationships. They're so critical. I certainly wouldn't be sitting here today if I had not had people that saw something in me when I didn't even see anything in myself. And they poured into me. And I've tried very hard in my life and career to pay that forward. So on February the 23rd at 6 o'clock, we're hosting a virtual event. We partnered with Illinois Humanities, with the local NAACP and Legacy. And when we talk about amplifying voices, you mentioned that, this is an opportunity for our audience to learn about Black literature. It was actually started, I think, in the late 70s by the National Association of Black English Teachers. and they started this event as part of Black History Month celebration. So we'll have readers from the community read an excerpt from a piece of literature or a poem, something that really speaks to them as part of the voice of the Black experience. So would love for you to be online with that as well. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you today. It was always a pleasure. I just challenge everyone that's watching or listening that you can make a difference and never be told that you can't. Use your voice, use the power of relationships and mentoring. That would be my summation. That's my closing argument.
Sounds good. Thank you for listening. And again, if you have any questions that you wish that Lynne would have answered or I would have answered, please feel free to email them in. Lynne?
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
Take care.